wanted to do right. And that's the whole point that I'm bringing out, is that there's something that we have to understand. There's an outward guilt that some of us feel naturally, and we do right only because it is expected of us to do, or because we got caught, or because there is a opportunity to show that, I am able to do good as well as you to do good, and I can be holy like you, or I can do the things that most people are doing. If you're in a congregation of, if everyone is together in a group setting, it's almost like you conform to that group setting. This is church. It's because everybody is expected to be one way, right? So that is an outward form of righteousness or uprightness. That's an outward form. But Job had the inward form of uprightness. He wanted to be upright because truly he feared God, and he eschewed evil, and he desired to please him. That's a difference. That is what made Job perfect. That is the core to making us perfect, Israel, is that this order is in process. Fear God, to eschew evil, and then the core of our being desires to be upright, to please him from the inside, not the outside. So the whole thing is that Israel is diseased. She is diseased because she has been serving on the outside and not on the inside of uprightness. She is diseased because she doesn't fear God. She doesn't fear the Most High. She doesn't eschew evil. This is the reason why the woman with the issue of blood, prophetically speaking, as well as figuratively speaking, that is the condition is a constant cycle of sickness over and over and over again, because it's circulating through Israel, because there is no process of healing. The process of healing represents closing the breach, closing the door to sin, holding up the standard against the enemy, which is bringing us back to the covenant and his laws and his statutes and his judgments. So that door is shut, so that breach is healed, and the wall is cemented, keeping the flood and the water out as the enemy is trying to penetrate in, having a way to come inside continually. We have to observe what is his law, to know and to be able to differentiate the law. Not understanding now, we see that a hairline fracture is all it needs. A hairline fracture is all it needs. So if the enemy can come in through that small seam, it is your lack of integrity to see what is sin, or what builds up to sin that opens that breach. Now, for instance, if we listen to gospel hip-hop, or the messages that comes from our creative source, which I used to write music, I love music, I understand the passion that comes with it, and I understand a lot of these things are inspiring. But on the scale to truly understanding the finite line that the enemy needs in order for him to come in, it is even to good things, even good purposeful things that you may do, that you may create out of your own talents, giving it up to the Lord as if he is ready to receive it, because you're so much passionate about it. You may not even see the true lines that this is a breach. You may not even acknowledge it as a breach. So when you go, I'm sorry, I said Abraham, but when you go back to the study of Genesis in Cain and Abel pleased the Lord. Why? Because he gave from his uprightness, his inside. Okay, just like Job, he gave from his inside. Cain gave from his outside. And because Cain gave from his outside, it wasn't accepted. Cain perceived what he was doing was right. He felt that's why he was upset. For him to be upset is because he literally had put his emotion into it versus uprightness of spirit, which is inside, because it revealed that it really wasn't from the inside, because his actions showed that he murdered his brother. And he was in emotion. So I want to bring out the studies that Israel, we're diseased through emotion. We're diseased through outward feelings. We're diseased for intangible things. And we yet offering these things up to the Most High and expecting him to receive it or to accept it. The emotional issue that we have is to believe that what we're doing is right. And we are absolutely, we should be absolutely appreciated for what we are doing. And we should be accepted. And you should not come against what I'm doing, because what I'm doing is offering others hope, and I'm sharing the truth to others, and I'm doing the Lord's will, because to you it is something that is upright. But to the Most High, it is outward uprightness. It is not inward uprightness. So that's the thing that we want to discover. What is the inward uprightness? So let's hold that point, and let me just bring that up with a verse in Revelations to prove this. To prove that our true condition is really a condition of a illusion of righteousness. We have this outward illusion of righteousness, or another word can be used is having presumptuous sin. Okay, so let's look at Revelations chapter 3, and let's look at let's start with verse 15. Well, actually, let's get straight to the point. Let's start with verse 15. 15, 16, and 17, and 18. We're going to look at all four verses, all right? Revelations chapter 3, verse 15, 16, 17, and 18. And it says, I know thy works, that thou art neither cold nor hot. I would thou wert cold or hot. So then, because thou art lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will spew thee out of my mouth. Because thou sayest, I am rich, and increase with goods, and have need of nothing, and knowest not that thou art wretched, and miserable, and poor, and blind, and naked. I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire, that thou mayest be rich, and white raiment, that thou mayest be clothed, and that the shame of thy nakedness do not appear. And anoint thy eyes with eye salve, that thou mayest see. The condition is that he says, I know thy works, that thou art neither cold nor hot. I would thou were cold or hot, which means I'd rather you be one or the other. Now, and according to this verse in Revelation 3:15, why is it stated that? Why does he say, I know thy works? And he says that you are neither one or the other. He says that he'd rather you choose one. And it says, so then, because thou art lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will spew thee out of my mouth. Now, to be spewed out of his mouth, which means that he was only going to accept one thing. He is only going to accept you being actually cold or hot. But the fact that, well, I say one thing, he's only going to accept one thing, that's hot, actually. So let me say this. He's only going to accept you for being hot. He's not going to accept anything that's cold. But the fact that you're cold resembles a person that is able to become hot, who has never, ever been hot, or has never been in a position to have a chance to be hot. It's just been cold. The temperature is cold. So that means that a person really didn't know the law, or hasn't understood the standard of holiness, okay? Because that person is a sinner. You can equate cold with that person as living in the world that's sin, which means that his grace, he can taste it. Oh, in his mouth is cold. Well, let me sit that down. He's not going to, despise that as way. If you're tasting something that's cold and you're expecting something to be hot, you could just go and spew it out, right? But sometimes in this condition, the scripture is basically saying that he'd rather you be one or the other. So we know that if he rather you to be one or the other, that means there is an acceptance for cold. It's not automatically rejected, because the cold represents the sinner. And the sinner has no experience that will make him know the difference between that which is hot, because he hasn't experienced the law or the intimacy of Christ or the love of Christ. So he's saying that you'd rather be either that or hot. But if you're lukewarm, if you're in the middle, that means you tasted. You tasted. The scripture says, taste and see that the Lord is good. Taste and see. And if you tasted the warmness, the love of Christ through the hotness, and you're still keeping that coldness, then now you're lukewarm and you will be spewed out. So the whole point is that there's only two sides, Israel. Two sides. And the sinner is only given to be cold because he hasn't had a chance to come into the light yet. So that doesn't require us. That is not speaking about us, because we know the love of Christ. We know the love of the Master. This is talking about us being hot. And what in essence does it mean to be hot? To be hot represents the fire that he is. He is the consuming fire, which means to be totally like Christ. Totally like him. Consuming in fire means leaving nothing of any nature that is worldly, that is sinful, that is characterized by the reflections of the world. That's what hot means. To be lukewarm is to celebrate a secular mindset. Gospel hip-hop having the ability to watch things that on television as sports, anything that is worldly, anything that does not promote the character of that consuming fire of the Most High. Images is another thing that is a straight transgression to his law. Now, these things I'm just mentioning to give you the sickness of Israel, because this is how she is diseased. This is how she has the issue of blood. 12 years, 12 meaning the tribe of 12 tribes of Israel. We understand. We're going to get back into that. And knowing the future Israel, the bride of Christ in Revelations 1, shows you that she has gotten victory. It will show you that she has gotten victory over this sickness. So we have to be healed through a hotness, a burning of being consumed, the consuming fire of him. That is why it is defined as hot. All right, now let's continue. Now let's look at the mindset of those who are not going to receive this message, because they are personally attached and emotionally attached to their vices, because they have the mindset of Cain. Mindset of Cain was upset. His countenance was wroth because he was not accepted. So if I tell you that your music and your level of influence and worldliness is not accepted to the Father, are you going to have the spirit of Cain? Will you seek to slay me? Will you seek to be upset? Or will you humble yourself and be like Abel? Because this is a message for us to observe, so we can get healed and show the Father that we really want to please him. And then that we can we can hold up the standard against the enemy, because he comes in like a flood. He comes in through that little hairline fraction that we overlook. The terms that we say, the looseness that we carry, our attitudes, our mannerisms, all these things are the hairline fractures, which is the seam that comes in like a flood that causes Israel to be sick with the issue of blood, prophetically speaking. Now let's continue. Let's look at Revelation chapter 3, verse 17. It says, because thou sayest, I am rich. This is the confidence. This is the boldness of Israel. Because thou say that I am rich, and I am increased with goods, and I have need of nothing, and I know it's not that thou art wretched, miserable, and poor, and blind, and naked. Automatically, when you don't humble yourself, you're going to enter into a state of blindness. That's what it's saying. Because thou say that I am rich, that what I'm doing is right, not even taking the consideration to question, could I be doing something wrong? That is better. To think and question and humble yourself and come to the Most High, and to examine your heart to see if what you actually are doing could be offensive to the Most High. That way, you won't fall under the stubbornness and the blindness of your true condition. It says, again, because thou sayest that I am rich, and I am increased with goods, and have a need of nothing. This may not be a verbal statement you say, but this may be an attitude, a action of one's persona, how you conduct yourself, as if you don't actually investigate every action, scrutinizing every decision and everything that you're doing to make sure that it's pleasing and acceptable to the Most High, and looking and matching the Christ character with your character of your own, and to line them together to see if this is something that will be a sweet aroma in his nostrils. Is it something that he would drink and swallow? Or will you spew it out? Because you have been made known to the goodness and the love and the mercy of the Most High. And you have now known over a time period since you accepted the faith, you have touched his love. And you have the word to read and to understand his laws. And so therefore you have known that is the same essence of someone being in a position to come in to an atmosphere and feel the warmth of the home, coming out from the cold blaze, feeling the warmth and the heat and the fire that's in the home. Oh man, this feels so good. It's so cold out there. It feels so good. And then to go back out in the cold. If you're going to come in the house and it feels good, you will want to get more and more better, right? You will want to stay in that position of warmth. That is what our conditions is. We're comfortable. We feel that warmth. And to know the difference is because the fact that once you're cold, you was a sinner. You didn't know no better. But you came in, you feel the warmth, now you know better. Now you understand his laws. And now you're comfortable there. You're comfortable in that cold and warm sensation. We have to get out of that sensation, and guess what we have to do? We have to get by the fire. We have to get by the fire. We have to go into the fireplace. That means that we have to actually go closer to him and be in the presence of the Most High. Where we're there at a place where it consumes us with his Holy Spirit, where it consumes us that all sin that we deal with internally will fall away. So when we understand the level of uprightness, it's the level of inward uprightness, not a place of comfort. And sometimes we get comfort just by feeling the warm coziness of someone's home when we come out of the cold of sin. But we stop there. We got to continue to move closer. We got to move towards the fireplace. Not just feeling the inward warmth of the beginning entrance of someone's doorway. Let's go to the fireplace where the heat actually is coming from. All right, you let me in your house, I feel warm. I don't want to get satisfied there. I want to go to the fire where it's hot at. So let me get to the fireplace. So that's what we have to move, Israel. We have to transition to a hot place, not get comfortable just because we came out of sin, just because we came out of the cold, and settling just for the doorway of feeling that first warmth of heat. Okay, so let's continue. And it says, in white raiment that thou mayest clothe, and that thou shame and thy nakedness do not appear, and anoint thy eyes with eye salve that thou mayest see. Now, he says he actually wants us to, let me go back. Let me start from the beginning. Let me start at 18, okay, because I kind of went before myself. 18 says, and I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire, that thou mayest be rich, and that white raiment, that thou mayest be clothed, and the shame of thy nakedness do not appear, and anoint thy eyes with eye salve that thou mayest see. So here it says, I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire. We have to be ready to exchange. The word buy means to exchange. Exchange what? We have to exchange that which is in regards to being tried. To being tried means to be tested, to be tempted. To be tempted out of what? What is he saying? I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in a fire. Fire is the very thing that we have to get to. We have to get from our lukewarm state unto the fire. And we have to exchange that which we're holding on to for that which is acceptable in order for us to get to the fire. And that is the trial of your faith. That is the trial of your faith, is to acknowledge that where you are is a lukewarm state. Or we all have to, Israel have to acknowledge. This is not to direct it towards this is directed towards me as well. It's not just directed towards the listener, that this is to search us. We all have to examine our state and see that if we're ready to forfeit, to give up, to relinquish, to let go that which is keeping us to be lukewarm, and to exchange it for that which will make us hot and bring us to the fire. Israel, we need to be healed from the issue of blood. Let's continue. So, going back to Job, understanding the reason why we came to Job is that we were looking at the uprightness from within and not having this outward uprightness of this self-confidence, this emotional acceptance, as if we are confident like Cain that we're offering up things that are going to be acceptable to the Most High. Now, I want to bring out a point in Job. Let's go to Job chapter 1. Go back to Job. Job chapter 1. Let's look at verse 12. Job chapter 1. Let's look at verse 12. And it says, and the Lord said unto Satan, behold, all that he... Excuse me, let me read over again. And the Lord said unto Satan, behold, all that he has is in thy power. Only unto himself put not forth thy hand. So Satan went forth from the presence of the Lord. So here he had permission to go ahead and to test or afflict Job. Now, I didn't have the time to go through the chapter. You're going to have to go back and read it. But the whole point is that Satan is coming before the Most High. He is inquiring that he has an opportunity to test Job, saying that Job, only reason why he serve you is because does not Job fear you for not? For the scripture says not, which means, or naught rather, which means for nothing. Doesn't he not fear you for nothing? That's the only reason why he's being obedient, is because you blessed him on every side and you put a hedge of protection around him. Okay, so if you go back and read it, that's what it's saying. Now, the Most High considered what Satan said and said, okay, go ahead. All that you have, all that Job has is in your hands. Now, I wanted to bring up the point here is that there is a hedge of protection around Job. Okay, so when we see that word, hedge of protection, let's actually go in verse 10. Verse 10 is where actually the word is. And it says, has not thou made a hedge about him and about his house and about all that he has on every side, that thou bless the works of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land? Now, if you remember, we talked about in the very first verse what made Job perfect. He feared God, he eschewed evil, and he had uprightness that made him perfect. Now, therefore, if we understand that these are the four characteristics that Job had, we can also equate that with the hedge of protection. So we can also look at this in regards to Israel. Israel's protection will be that which is to fear, to eschew evil, and to have uprightness, what makes us perfect. Therefore, there is a hedge of protection. A hedge of protection is round. If you notice the verse in 10, it says, has not thou made an hedge about him and about his house and about all that he has? About means around or round about. So here we see that there is a circular covenant of protection. That's what a protection is, to guard all sides in order that nothing comes in, which we know as, if anything does come in, we know the term as the breach, or what causes it can be the breach destroyers, Satan's sin and vices. So here Job had protection because these things were in place. Okay, now let's continue. Now let's look at Job chapter 2, verse 4 and 7. Job chapter 2, verse 4 through 7. And it reads, and Satan answered the Lord and said, skin for skin, yea, all that a man hath will he give for his life. But put forth thy hand now, and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse thee to thy face. And the Lord said unto Satan, behold, he is in thy hands, but save his life. So went Satan forth from the presence of the Lord, and smote Job with sores, boils, from the sole of his feet unto his crown, which is mean his head. So Satan smote him with these boils. Now what does this mean? This represents the curse of Israel from the sole of our feet. Let's prove that. Let's go to Isaiah 1 in chapter 1. Isaiah chapter 1. chapter 1. And let's look at verse 5 and 6. Isaiah chapter 1, let's look at verses 5 and 6, which says, "Why should ye be stricken any more? Ye will revolt more and more. The whole head is sick, and the whole heart faint. From the sole of the feet even unto the head, there is no soundness in it, but wounds and bruises and putrefying sores. They have not been closed, neither bound up, neither mollified with ointment." So here we see that Israel is bruised, no soundness in it, putrefying sores and wounds. Where do it start? It says it covers it in verse 5. It says the whole head is sick, from the sole of the feet even unto the head, which represents the crown. This is what Job went through. This is the affliction that he had. This is because that Satan was able to penetrate inside of the hedge of protection. So this was only because the Most High was going to prove that Job was faithful and he was obedient. And that is the only reason why this happened. But the whole point is that when that breach is being, when a breach is applied to our covenant circle, when a breach destroyer comes in and the wall of protections are broken down through the finite mentality of sin that we have, but so loosely that we overlook the smallest thing, when it comes in, when the enemy comes in like a flood, this is how we are diseased. We're diseased from the sole of our feet unto the head. We see that Job had a hedge around him. He was protected, but yet Satan was permitted to come through that hedge. And we see that his whole entire body was covered. So as much that his friends wept for 7 days. They didn't even say anything. They were so sorrowful for Job, they couldn't believe that he was going through this. His wife even turned and said, "You should curse God and die." So understanding the concept of this is that to be diseased from the sole of your feet to the top of your head, that's all over your body. Could it be that we're ignorant of understanding the breach and that we are diseased from the sole of our feet to the top of our head and we know it not because the fact that we don't understand the law of protection, the hedge of protection to fear God, to eschew evil, to walk up with uprightness, which makes us perfect, which places the law around us, that we may hold a standard against the enemy, that which he comes in like a flood. See, for us to understand this, it takes meditation for us to contemplate this. So in order for us to see deeper in that Job is an example of Israel being with the issue of blood with 12 years, being sick, being diseased, being possessed. Let's look at Revelations 12:1. Let's look at the future Israel. Let's look at the ideal goal of where we are aiming to be. Revelations 12:1 reads, "And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars." Upon her head a crown of 12 stars. Again, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. This, my dear friends, true listeners, that hear from the Spirit what the Spirit is saying unto the churches, receive this. The 12 stars around her head represents that fortification of the hedge, that protection. This is the bride that triumphed Israel. This is the bride that we are aiming to be. This is the bride that will be ready for when Christ returns. We are to be this bride. And notice that the 12 stars around her head represents a crown. Notice that also on her feet that she is standing on, the scripture says, and under her feet, upon her crown. I'm sorry, let's read it again. It says that she was clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet. and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. So from the soles of her feet, we already know that if she's standing on the moon, that represents the ordinances. Because the ordinances determines the day of the Sabbath, the feast, his judgments, and all his judgments, and all his statutes, and all that which he commands us to follow is connected to the moon. His ordinances. Let's get that so we can prove that. Let's go to Jeremiah 25. Okay. Okay, 1 second. Let me get this. And we're going to prove that in Jeremiah, the host of heavens actually, let me see, hold on 1 second. Get this verse come to my mind and the Job, and let's see. Gotta make sure I get this verse right, because I didn't want to mess it up. Jeremiah 31. I'm sorry, I said 25. Jeremiah 31 and 36. Okay. Thank you for being patient. Thank you for being patient. Okay, again, bringing it back. Now, the woman that's standing on the moon represents the foundation. We're gonna look at a verse in regards to this foundation. We know that this moon is important because it connects to all his feasts. Okay, his laws, his statutes, his judgments, his commandments. All right, the moon, that's in order for us to determine time. The new moon determines a new month during the time of Israel. That's how they kept up with the feast. So this represents a connection to his law. They gave her the foundation. That is the reason why she was able to have the 12 stars around her head, representing a crown, representing victory, representing healing. We understand that Job had petrified sores from the sole of his feet onto his crown, to his head. We understand that happened because the breach was broken. Okay, that means that it was an open doorway for that to happen. For Satan came into that, he broke in. He is the breach destroyer. He broke through the hedge. So we understand the hedge. We understand that